Welcome into the episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. In today's episode, we have Brett Wallace on the podcast. Brett is the hitting coach for the California Golden Bears in the ACC. And in this episode, he talks about, what it's like now being a hitting coach in college baseball, what it was like being a player in the major leagues. Brett played 6 years in the major leagues himself. He was a former college player, two-time Pac-12 Player of the Year at Arizona State. And I'll be honest with you, he blew me away in this episode of his knowledge of everything from the mechanics to the mental side. It's phenomenal, great content. No matter who you are, if you're a hitting coach, if you're a player, a parent, you're going to get a ton of value out of this episode. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Brett Wallace. Welcome into the episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. Today's episode, we have Brett Wallace on. Brett is the hitting coach for the California Golden Bears. Brett, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So I know you played in the major leagues, and we'll get into a little bit of your own background maybe a little bit later, but I know you were at Arizona State in the past and helping out with their program. Now you're the hitting coach. You're the main hitting coach for California Golden Bears. What was it like this past season, like being now full-time hitting coach in the ACC, like you running your own show pretty much from an offensive standpoint? What were some of the things that surprised you, or some things you're like, maybe I shouldn't have done? I'm curious to get into kind of inside your mind of what you expected and then like what actually happened.
Yeah, I think the main difference, obviously, being able to be the instructor all the time, being the guy that's going to set the program for the fall, create the identity for our offense, and then be able to move forward through the fall, develop the hitters, and then get them ready to play in the spring. Being the guy that's responsible for that, there's a lot of things that go into that, whether it's game planning, whether it's, analyzing each hitter and figuring out what they need. You're the main source for that. So you don't have when you're an auxiliary staff member, you have guys that are kind of like in charge of doing that, and you're kind of giving input and helping on certain aspects of it. When you're in charge of it, you definitely have to be all hands on deck. You have to be looking at every hitter throughout the entire fall, every swing they take. The things I learned about myself, I think, just to be honest, calling the offense, like figuring out times that I like to do things, what guys I like to run in what situations, how do we turn up and create havoc, but also be smart, because at the end of the day, as a hitting coach, I want us to hit balls in the gap and run and score a lot of runs, not necessarily, bunt, steal, things like that. Those are things I want to add in that we can do to add havoc when we're not swinging it as well. So I think just finding, my identity as a coach and the timing of those plays, but also the identity of the team and feeling throughout the game what we need.
So you were in charge of everything from an offensive standpoint, like whether you bunt, everything.
Yeah. Mike gave me a lot of freedom, which was really cool to actually call the offense. And we work together. Obviously, like, he stands next to me throughout the entire game. And we get a chance to kind of talk through some situations like, hey, I like this in this situation. But he definitely empowered me to make a lot of those decisions.
You had a lot of success as a college player at Arizona State, two-time Pac-12 Player of the Year. There's obviously, from a hitting standpoint, I'm sure there's certain things for you personally as a hitter that really clicked, or maybe some main cues, or just stuff that really helped you excel as a hitter. What were those things? And are those things that you find yourself wanting to routinely coach to the players that you have?
For sure. I think there's some generic keys, right? Like, one of my big things is like entering behind the baseball. Like, I know there's like a lot of talk now of launch angle and, even like the teacher man's got the rearward tilt, things like that. But for me, it's entering behind the baseball, trying to be as flat as we can possibly be. And then how far through extension can we get? That's what really helped me as a hitter. And I think when I learned to do that, I was able to keep balls straighter, hit them with more backspin, and drive the ball in the gap, both sides. I naturally hit balls to the backside easier with backspin. Pull side, I had to learn how to kind of get through that slot and stay through it longer. So that's something that I definitely preach to our guys. And I think that's like the basic fundamentals for me.
When you say get behind the baseball, you mentioned teacher man and some other things right there, because I'm sure people could take that to an extreme of getting behind the baseball. I guess, are you referring to, hey, like when you're landing, before you actually start your swing, before your front foot lands, and then body's in good position, good posture, the shoulders, you haven't dropped your back shoulder yet, and you're just turning behind the ball with your barrel?
Yeah, for sure. So I like to think of posture being like forward lean posture. That's what's going to create our lift for us, so we don't have to work kind of uphill behind it too much. And so I preach a lot of posture stuff, like a little bit slightly over the plate, so we can create the right angles with our barrel. And then the other thing is delivering the barrel from behind the back shoulder. So I think if you do those two things, you're in a pretty good spot to enter flat and also stay on plane for a long time.
Are there certain drills that helped you out as a player, or maybe that you really like going to now as a coach?
As a player, to be honest, I was more of the guy that you gave me a feel or a thought that you wanted me to accomplish, and I just go hit until I could figure it out. Like, how does my body move? How do I get into that position and things like that? Like, I was just a grinder. Like, I wanted to go out there and do it. There are drills as far as like the connection ball to the back barrel. Like, we work on that to help flatten our barrel, keep it connected to your back shoulder, things like that. We do a lot of that work. And then we do a lot of PVC pipe work. We don't do it as much with the swing stuff, but what we do is we do it for mirror work to mimic our posture forward so that we know that we're entering to the ball. And then we go in and do it on the tee. So we'll put the PVC pipe on our shoulders and then we'll have our good posture forward. And then we're rotating to the baseball that's on the tee. And it's just a visualization for the guys to understand that when they work with the front leaning posture, they don't have to drop behind the baseball and things like that to get the elevation that they want.
Okay, so I'm visualizing that right now. So you have the guys PVC on their back like they'd be doing a squat essentially, and then you have a T put just probably like ball right down the middle. I guess you can make it so it's different heights, and then you would just have them turn with the ball on the tee, or maybe not, maybe it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And then just to teach them what posture they need for that certain pitch height. Is that correct?
Yeah, it teaches them the posture that they need, and then it also it's like a visualization of like that you don't have to like disconnect your barrel to go get a baseball, whether it's down or up. We want it to stay connected to that back shoulder as we turn so that it's a tight turn. It really helps them visualize that move, that they don't have to create extra reach or anything like that to get to those extra pitches.
I like that. I like the mirror work too. I know you mentioned that too. I think that's something that I think a lot of people overlook that. I don't hear of a ton of people doing mirror work or things like that, but I think that's something that I think is a low hanging fruit just from, again, that being able to visually see it themselves in real time. I think that's key. So I like the movement stuff. I like the PVC stuff for sure. I think that's good. Teaching them the posture, because that's important. It's kind of like just a domino effect. That first domino needs to roll over first. When it comes to like you watching college baseball right now, obviously you guys are in the ACC. You're facing really good arms, but you played at a high level too in the Pac-12. Any difference? And you don't have to say yeah, just because I'm asking this question. But any really big difference in the competition, more specifically the pitching that you think guys are at today versus when you played? Like, are they significantly that much better, or is that a little bit overblown at the college specific level?
I don't know if they're significantly better. I think we had some pretty special arms when I was coming through. I think the evolution of the game has been they're starting to figure out like how to get hitters out more. Like when I was in college, there was scouting reports, but it wasn't as in depth as it is now. So they're definitely scouting better and they're giving them a better game plan. And then they're also analyzing the pitchers, I think, a little more and learning what they do well, whether the ball rides, it sinks, whatever it's going to do. And they're teaching them to utilize that more effectively, more consistently. And I think that's probably the biggest change. I think you're seeing guys that now are starting to learn what their ball really does and being able to maximize what they can do well and getting outs with that. So I think when I played, it was a little more of like some guys knew what their ball was doing. Maybe they had good ride or good carry, but I don't think it was really like taught quite as much. I think now we're going through the data a lot more and it's easier for more pitchers to understand what they really do well and be able to maximize their strengths.
What about at the professional level, the major league level? What are some of the things that you took away from that, playing at that level versus playing at the college level? And is there anything that you like once you got to the major leagues, like you learned some different stuff that you never would have learned had you not played at that level? And has that been able to help you now as a coach learn that stuff, like teach that?
For sure. I mean, I think first of all, when you get into pro ball in general, not even just the big leagues, you learn that you're going to play every single day. So those days of having a whole week off to make big adjustments, it just doesn't happen. So it really focuses on the off-season work because I have to get to a really good spot and have a game plan for not only what do I want to do, but then how do I maintain that? I have to have my routine established already so that when I go into the pro season, I'm able to maintain it. Because if I don't have a lot of time to ride that wave of up and down, like struggles and things like that. That's the first thing. So I think that's helped me kind of as a coach try to convey to our guys like, hey, it's not just about how well you go into the season, but it's how well have you prepared as far as knowing your identity, knowing the things that you need to work on, and then how do we hammer them home every single day so that your routine is enforcing the things that we're getting better at, and then we're able to go out there and feel really good every day. That's one. And then I think the second, just being able to compete at that level. You play with against really good players. You also play with really good hitters and hitting coaches. And so you get a chance to break down swings, see what works against the most elite pitchers in the world. And when you can do that, then you start looking for the things that really translate, whether it's posture, whether it's tight turns, whether it's, your timing, starting on time, getting down early, getting to a launch position consistently. Because when you get to the big leagues, you have to repeat your moves. You can't be the guy that, like, every third swing I deliver my barrel, you're not going to have success. You can't do that. And I think the progression from college to minor leagues to the big leagues, that's a big change, is that our work and our game swings have to be more consistent.
You mentioned routine there. Are you a really big believer and you have a routine and you stick to the routine like every single day throughout the entire season?
Yeah, I think there can be slight modifications like, hey, I'm really struggling with breaking balls. We're going to enter that into the equation later in your routine in the day. But I like to hit with our guys one on one every day. So I hit with either a group of one or two every day, all the way from, 10:30 in the morning, all the way through whatever time, if someone can come down to the cage. So it's like, hey, if you have 15 minutes before practice starts, like, let's get in there. Let's make sure we hammer out our routine every day and I can watch it, give you my input. Maybe we video it. Maybe we do extra mirror work, just depending on where you're at in it. But having that consistency every day is really key for any hitter, but especially for a young hitter to learn that, because now we're repeating moves every single day. And I know that the same move is being made. So now when we go out to a sim game, we go out to a scrimmage, and then we get into the season, we can repeat those moves as well.
Brett, there's going to be some kids listening to this in high school who aren't lucky enough to have somebody like you coaching them in college yet, and maybe they're trying to still figure things out. And when they hear a routine or something like that, they don't even know where to begin or what that would entail. What advice would you be like? What's a simple way for a player out there, maybe a high school player, to start incorporating a routine that will help them over time? I know it's going to be different, obviously, for each guy, like you mentioned, the breaking ball, but what would be your advice for someone who's like, I know I need to do something because I'm kind of scatterbrained. I don't know what to do, but I know it should be something. I just don't know what to do.
I think you start with the most basic thing, right? So for me, the easiest thing you can do anywhere, anytime is mirror work. You can do it at home. You can do it in a cage if you're lucky enough to have that. So I like to have our guys start with mirror work. It's more of a mental imagery of what we're trying to do and the movement patterns we want. And you don't have to have a cage. You don't have to have balls. You don't have to anything. You don't even need a PVC pipe. You can just put your hands here and feel the turn. So I would start with that every day. Just visualize and see that every day, the move that you want to make, how tight you want it to be. And then I think it progresses to the tee, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like for me, once I got to the big leagues, I had honed in on, hey, I'm gonna hit the ball super deep the other way. I'm gonna feel that deep slot that I'm behind the baseball right away. I'm gonna move it middle, and then I'm gonna move it out front, and I'm gonna feel the barrel working that way. And I'm gonna finish back to the backside deep again, so that I feel deep contact. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but it's more about learning who you are as a hitter, and then doing the things that you think enforce those traits in you. If you're a guy that likes to pull off the baseball, then we're going to do a lot of work on our routine of staying through the baseball the other way. So we might move our contact point deeper. If you're a guy that really drives the ball the other way pretty well, but you don't know how to keep it straight to the pole side, we're going to start deep, but we're going to definitely do a lot of work middle to out front so that we can learn how to get through that plane or through that track on plane and stay through the baseball better. So it's more about identifying who you are as a hitter, your strengths and your weaknesses, and then just trying to devise a 10 to 15 minute routine every single day that's going to harp into those things you want to get better at.
That was actually going to be my next follow up, was how long of a routine, like how long would that take? But you just mentioned it right there, 10 to 15 minutes. One of the things that I'll see from young hitters is how they hit in during their routine or during BP. A lot of times will make them get really high on themselves, like they're really, really good, or really low if they don't do very well hitting in BP or in the routine. You obviously played at a much higher level than I did from a hitting standpoint. What's a good mindset to have when you're going through your routine, you're going through BP, because I'm assuming you don't want to have it be where you get so high if you're just perfectly executing every single round going ahead in the game, but you also don't want to get too low either if you're not doing it well.
Yeah, for sure. I think young hitters, college hitters, big league hitters can fall into this trap for sure about, the result dictates how good I feel, whether it's the game getting hits and then it's like, I feel great, but your swing it doesn't really look good. But also BP is the biggest trap. And honestly, my message to our guys is always this, is like, I had some of the best games of my career when I took bad BP, and I had some of the best games of my career when I took good BP. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what your BP looks like. You have to have an irrational confidence in who you are as a hitter and that you can go out there and compete. And if you're worried about competing and not your swing once the game starts, you're in a really good spot. Because like all of us, especially in college, but even those high school kids, like they worked really hard to get to the place that they are and feel out what they want to do. If you take bad BP, all it means is that maybe your contact point's slightly off. Maybe you're just not seeing it great because of the sun's in your eyes, whatever it might be. But it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, all that matters is once the game starts that you go out there and compete. So I tell guys all the time, it's like if I had a bad BP, I was like, they're in a lot of trouble because I got all the bad swings out. So like they're all ready for the game. And if I had a great BP, I'm like, they're in a lot of trouble because I got a lot of good swings today. So it's just like that irrational confidence to me. Like you just got to believe that.
Is that something that you learned yourself just by playing for a really long time, or did you have somebody mentor you, tell you that, an older player or coach? Like where did you pick up on that?
I think honestly, it's a combination of a lot of things. I actually had Dustin Pedroia told me one time when I was in college, he was back hitting. And he was just like, "Hey, just remember at the end of the day, like you break, like no matter what, like what someone's telling you to do, what your BP's like, what your any of that stuff is like, you break, and you got to remember that, and you got to tell yourself every day." And then there's a really famous quote from him later on where he says that he's like, like laser show, like they're like, "What happened after I struggled my first month?" Laser show, and that message to me kind of carried over from then on. I was just like, yeah, dude, I'm just going to tell myself I rake every day, no matter what. And if I feel terrible, I'm going to remind myself of the good days that I rake and that they're in trouble. And once I started learning that, honestly, I started taking it with me and it was really cool. Like my BP really didn't dictate what I was going to do that day. And also it kind of took the pressure off BP. Sometimes guys, I honestly feel like they're feeling for it in BP. They're like, oh no, like that didn't feel good or that first round was bad. And it's like, hey man, if you believe that you rake and you have that irrational confidence, it's all good. Like you're right, man. Like just see the ball deep, put the ball up the middle, like stay through it. Like don't try to do too much. Just let it kind of come to you because you know that it's not the most important thing for you that day.
So it sounds like you just constantly repeating that to yourself over and over and over again on a daily basis. That really kind of ingrained that in your mind. Is that right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there was days I was telling myself that going up to the plate, like whether I had a good at bat my first one or not, like it was just like, all right, like at the end of the day, you're dangerous and you rake. Like you're going to go up there and do something special. So just see the baseball and don't try to do too much because you don't have to.
What would be something if you could go back and do it again from a playing standpoint? Would there be any? What would be anything, or would there be anything different that you would do from a preparation standpoint, in game, mental game, physical, anything? Just knowing what you know now, which I know it's always in hindsight, but I feel like now you'd give yourself really good advice with everything you know.
There's probably two things I would change slightly. And one of them would be when I was a young hitter, I didn't study my hitting as much as I needed to. Like I was more of like the feel versus real, right? Like I just felt what I needed to feel, felt my rhythm, and I went and played. So even through college, I knew what I was trying to do roughly, but I didn't really dive into the mechanics of it. And I think maybe I could have done that earlier. I started doing that kind of in the middle of my career when I started feeling some things I wanted to improve on. And I got some hitting coaches like John Maley in Houston started teaching us kind of some of the mechanics that are going to help you do the things I want to do, which is staying through the ball on the pull side. So that's one thing I think I would have definitely liked to dive into the mechanics a little earlier in my career. I did do that middle to the late, and then that's what's kind of transitioned me into the hitting coach side because I kind of fell in love with the mechanics and the way it works, and also the mental side. And then I think the second part would just be like late in my career, I started getting into like visualization and like things like that, whether it be on deck, whether it be if I'm pinch hitting on the bench throughout the game, visualizing the pitcher I'm going to face, the pitches, like what the situation is going to feel like, the emotion, the energy in the stadium, things like that. And so then when you get into the actual one, you've already lived it. Like it's like, hey man, like I already know what this feels like. I already seen it. So I think those two things could have helped me maybe a little earlier, but the fact that I picked them up late, they helped me, and now I get to help transition those to the next generation and teach kids how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it like this, but it's actually probably a good thing that you didn't learn those things until late. So now, like you said, you're able to impact tons and tons of players because of that. Versus maybe if you learned it early, you were just taking it for granted. I 100% agree on the visualization piece. I sometimes talk with Dr. Brent Walker, who's with the Dodgers on their major league staff. He runs their mental performance, and that's something that he's always talking to me. He's like, I just can't believe that so many people overlook visualization because there's so much research done on it. And I know there's some people who say like it's not real or whatever. And the perfect example he gave me was like, if you're having a bad dream and you wake up sweating, like you had a physiological response to something that was in your brain, right? Something that was going on. And it's kind of exactly what you said, where if you can really work on that and practice it, then you're able to use that to your benefit. And you've already gotten those reps without even actually stepping up to the plate. So I think that's phenomenal that, you again are doing that with your guys. Were other players doing that kind of stuff or talking about that stuff even like later in your career when you were playing in the big leagues, or was that still something that you just kind of kept to yourself, or each guy was kind of doing their own thing?
I would say it was definitely unique to each player. Some guys, we talked about it, but not every guy was bought in for sure. The Padres actually later in my career started having like guys come in to speak about it, to teach us some of that stuff. And then it was up to you whether you kind of wanted to implement it or not. And that and kind of like the gratitude ladder, as far as like every day having gratitude for like different things in your life and the opportunity to go out and play and compete, things like that. It really flips your mindset as far as like it's an opportunity every day to play the game you love and to compete, and like the failure or success is kind of a fleeting thing over here that we can't focus on those things. We got to focus on the gratitude for the opportunity. So I think the visualization and that gratitude side of it were really big for me late in my career. I think it was more unique to myself. Like I really embraced those things and started trying to utilize them. And I definitely had some guys that wanted to talk about it and were interested in it, but I don't think it was like widespread. I think it's starting to become less taboo and more understood a little bit, but there's definitely a side that people still don't know.
I'd sent a message to one of your players who I've worked with in the past, Jacob French, and I told him you were coming on the podcast, and so I just texted him and said, "Okay, is there anything specific that you think I should ask that you think would be really beneficial?" And maybe you've already hit on this a little bit, but I still want to ask the question. So Jacob said that he would ask you about how your approach to hitting has evolved over the years, starting in high school to college to pro and now to coaching.
Yeah. I think for me, it's evolved just like we kind of talked about the mechanical adjustments I made throughout my career. Early on, driving the baseball the other way was kind of my bread and butter. Like I could backspin baseballs to the left center field gap kind of naturally. And then pulling, I had to kind of figure out how to do that. So that's something I kind of teach them is like, hey, like everybody has a strength. Like this is what you do really well naturally. But then how do we evolve and create new strengths? Like, hey, I hit the ball the other way well, but now I want to hit the ball to center field well. And then I want to hit it to right center well. And then I want to move it to right field as well, you know? And it's really important that while you do that, you don't lose your strength, because you can lose focus on what you do really well. And then what made you special is kind of out the window. So it definitely transitioned from left center power to being able to pull it from left center to right center. And then late in my career, I was able to actually start pulling balls down the line truly straight with backspin so that they weren't hooking at all. But early in my career, I was definitely middle to the other way. And then I kind of evolved to, as I learned how to do it and stay under control and stay through my track, I was able to pull balls a little more straight and a little bit more consistently.
Usually it's the opposite, what I see with young players, where they start out trying to pull everything and then you try to get them over time to buy into hitting to the up the middle opposite field. But for you, it was the opposite. Was that because you had somebody when you were young teach you that, or was that like why was that? Because that's not something that I hear a whole lot about, or see anyway from young players.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was something that was definitely hard from honestly, like my little league coach was really he was a high school principal and high school baseball coach, and he coached me in little league. Very, very detailed and really on it, and he kind of harped through the middle of the field. And then honestly, I think it was like a God given thing. Like, hey, I really have like it's easier for me to stay through that track through middle of the field to left center. And I'm not 100% sure why. I think that was just more of a God given like skill that I had. Um, and I think we're all given some of those. And that was one thing I was able to do really early on in my career and be able to repeat it, which was awesome. And then, you know, once that strength is kind of exposed, like people see you doing that consistently, they're like, oh, we can't just throw them fastball away like we do to most young hitters because they're going to try to yank it. So then they start pounding me in hard. And so then the game of chicken and hitting is, all right, they now know what I'm trying to do and what I do well. So now I got to kind of beat them to the punch on the ball in, while also not totally giving away the ball away, because they are going to eventually go back out there. So that was kind of the game of chicken for me, like learning how to get to that ball in and not be so worried about the ball in that I couldn't hit the ball middle away.
The cat and mouse game from a hitting standpoint, you just describing that right there just kind of just triggered a thought in my mind of, I'm sure you've seen the Greg Maddux and Barry Bonds video of them going back and forth of what each was thinking during one of the at bats. Did you do that often? Like, is that something that players should be doing more of throughout their at bat is going
Um,
through that process, is thinking along with the pitcher, or is that something that's only when you're older?
I think like college and beyond, you can definitely do that. When pitchers have more scouting reports and they're really like honed in on what you do well and what you don't do well and what their ball does and stuff, I think you can definitely start playing it. I think the Barry Bonds side of it is like the most extreme case that could ever happen because he's like such a talented hitter. I mean, probably the most talented hitter of all time. So he could do things that probably no one in the world could do. And it's one of those things where you learn from it, but you're also like, hey, like that's probably next level that almost no one's going to get to. I'm a big proponent of mid at bat adjustments of as far as understanding what they're doing. Pitchers are trying to set you up for things. So, I always tell our guys like, hey, you get a fastball with 2 strikes and it's top of the zone. Maybe you foul it off, maybe you take it, whatever. Like, do you think they're just throwing a fastball up just because it was fun to see if you chase? Or do you think they're throwing fastball up thinking like, yeah, he might chase, but you know what it's going to do? It's going to change his eyes and then we're going to go back down, change up or slider down. And so, like, understanding that, we're not going to sit, change up, or slider after that fastball, but we are going to be aware of it. So now we're going to look for the ball slightly elevated. We're going to take that change up down that's running out of the zone. We're going to take it because we're looking for the ball coming out higher now, knowing that they're trying to change our eye level. So we have to really adjust our approach to that. And I think when you can do those things mid at bat, you eliminate those, predictable. Like there's times I'm standing there talking to Mike or to anyone in the dugout and they buzz a fastball up and I'm like, all right, slider down. And then they throw a slider down and it's like, we need to learn how to make those adjustments mid at bat. That's next level hitting. You start learning how they're setting you up, what that they want to get you out with, things like that, and then you can adjust faster. And then you take away some of their strengths and you kind of make them start chasing you versus the other way around.
How old were you when you started doing some of that stuff during an at bat?
I'd say college. I think in high school, to be honest, like there was like a lot of just I'm seeing the baseball and hitting it, and I'm trusting that I didn't play in the biggest league in the country or anything. Like our team was like in a smaller conference, so we're facing guys that weren't throwing quite as hard, and so you could kind of just see everything and hit it. When I got to college, I started learning about like, hey, they're gonna once I started hitting the ball away, our hitting coach started telling me like, hey, just so you know, like they're gonna start coming in on you, and at some point you're gonna have to show them that you can hit that, or else they're just gonna live in there and never give you what you really want. And so then it was about like, okay, when do we take chances on that ball in? Like I'm gonna give up the outer half for 1 pitch, 2 pitches, whatever in this at bat because I know they're not going out there, and then be on time and flush it, and then go right back to my approach back outside. You know what I mean? So I think in college is where it started, and then once you get to the big leagues and all that stuff, you start facing guys that are really purposeful with their pitches. They're gonna buzz your tower, then they're gonna go back to change up away, or they're gonna throw the slider early for a strike, and then they're gonna tunnel the same one off of it that's gonna run off the plate. So we got to really be doing a good job of adjusting on the fly with what we know they want to do and what their ball does.
Do you believe the better the pitcher, the more specific the approach needs to be?
Yeah, I think the better the pitcher, the simpler the approach has to be in general. Yeah, like I think you have to stay through baseballs a little more. You have to be conscious of like we're not swinging out of our shoes. We're swinging on time with an aggressive nature to do damage. But I do think that even the better the pitcher, they have tendencies because they all have egos, right? Like a really good pitcher that throws 98, he wants to get you out with that 98. Like he's going to come back to it. And we can use that as information of how do we get back on time to 98 late in the count. Because watch the setups. Like when he's bouncing sliders to you and you know that ego says, I want to punch you out with 98, slightly elevated. We understand that like we have to be on time. We can't cheat to slider. We can't be sitting slider timing. We're sitting heater timing because we're going to get one and we're going to do damage. And they're going to be like, how'd you get to 98 with, a 2-2 count? Well, because there was an educated guess that fastball's coming and we're going to be on time and aggressive fastballs in this account. So I think you use their strengths against them as well. Pitchers are game planning to us like, hey, he doesn't like slider down, he doesn't like heater up, he doesn't like the ball in, whatever it might be. Well, we also know, what you like to get guys out with. So now we can maybe eliminate slider because we can tunnel like that one's not a strike. He likes to punch you out with that. Or hey, he throws 98, he wants to get you out with that up. So we can start using their strengths to our advantage as well and understanding how to beat them.
It was interesting to hear you say earlier for yourself when you said there was times where like that away pitch, like you would maybe give up a pitch or two. And I think the way you said it is like then you would look middle in and then for a couple, and then you would kind of open it back out again on the outer half. I really like that. I mean, that to me is like that's hitting. That's an art form. Is that something that you see a lot of guys? You think a lot of players do stuff like that, where maybe the first like they're looking for something specific part of the zone the first pitch or two, and then if they don't get it, or if the bat goes one way, then they'll make an adjustment and revert back to their old approach. I'm fascinated with that type of hitting knowledge and players who think like that.
Yeah, I think the general consensus of college hitters right now is they're looking for like a very specific location for the most part. Like I'm looking fastball middle in. If it's in, I don't want it. If it's middle or middle away, like they might not swing. I think the best hitters kind of understand that you can cover, if you take away and you take away in, like on the corner, and then you hit middle in, middle away, and middle, you can do a lot of damage, especially early in the counts when guys are trying to throw strikes. So I think guys tend to get a little too specific about what they're looking for. Like it's like one tunnel, one lane on the plate. When like honestly in BP, you could hit 3 or 4 of the lanes and you're totally fine. So if we're in a hitter's count where we should be batting practice timing, right? Like we're trying to drive the baseball and we have no reason to be taking in between swings. We're taking our A swing and we're getting it off. We should be able to cover multiple lanes of the plate and be on time and aggressive to them. And then yeah, like there's gonna be a time that those lanes that I'm looking for slide to the inside part of the plate, and I'm covering in and middle in and maybe slightly middle. But I'm gonna do that because I'm playing a game with the pitcher. Like I know he's coming in there, and I'm gonna yank a homer off him, and then he's gonna be like, "Whoa, he was ready for that." And then I go right back to out here. I'm middle of the plate to the outer half, and now you're like, "All right, like don't go back in. He just got me," and then he throws it away, and then I hit a ball in the gap that way. So to me, that's the game that you play with the pitcher.
Did you ever believe the stories of Manny Ramirez, how he would purposely strike out early in the game to set the pitcher up for at bats later in the game?
I mean, it's just such a crazy thing to think of, but like I've heard it from a lot of people that like he was playing those games for sure. So I mean, it takes a lot of confidence in who you are, and that kind of goes back to our BP conversation. But like that's an example of a guy that believed in what he was doing so much that like he would give up an at bat possibly to get to the more important leverage at bat and feel like he was in the driver's seat. So that might be an extreme case, but that confidence right there just shows you how much to succeed at that level, what you have to have in confidence and belief in yourself.
Brett, since you're a hitting coach in the ACC, I wanted to ask you some things about what you look for as a hitting coach in a potential recruit. And I know maybe now it's a little bit different because of the transfer portal and the roster size and stuff like that. But let's just say from a high school standpoint, is it much harder now for you to go all in on a high school hitter just because of the portal and of the new roster size and things like that? And then if you were to go get a high school hitter, like what would you need to see before you're like, yes, I'm in?
I mean, there's slightly different things we look for in each hitter. So, like a couple things we look for, obviously, bat speed. I mean, bat speed to me is somewhat God given. Like I know there's bat speed programs and all that, and you can gain bat speed, but like if you have none, you're not going to become an elite bat speed guy. And bat speed is kind of king. It's hard to hit really effective pitching without pretty good bat speed. So bat speed's one thing I look at. One thing would be how you move athletically, how your body moves, how it sequences, things like that, so that we can see what movement patterns could we either do we see in you or can we create in you? Like your body is able to move this way. We could create the right sequence that's going to help you. And then as far as like the transfer portal, I mean, I think one thing we preach at Cal for sure is relationship. Like we want the guys that want a relationship, that want to be developed and want to become big leaguers. So if we can get a kid that's out of high school and we know that he's all in, he's going to be here for 3 years, we can develop you through this pattern and really invest in you to make you the best you can be. So that when you get to your junior year, you're going out there, you're a first round pick, you go play in the big leagues. That's what we're looking for. Sometimes nowadays you see a lot of kids that it's like facilities, money, all that. Those are the focuses. And for us, it's who wants to be the best baseball player? Like who is a cage rat? Who wants to get after it? And obviously has talent and all those things, but who wants to really build a relationship so that we can grow together and we can help you along the way. And then hopefully for life, like, hitters that you have and you pass on to pro ball, then they get to the big leagues, like you're going to be in their life forever. And that's what we really preach is like, we want a lifetime relationship. We want to develop you and we want to be there to support you as you transition on.
Has the new house settlement and the 34-man roster changed how you'll go about recruiting high school players?
To be 100% honest, that's, I think, still to be determined. Like, I think it's going to change some things, but I still think you need to acquire young talent, right? Like the transfer portal is going to be kind of hectic for, I think, the next few years with the roster limits for sure. But I think at the end of the day, like you don't just want 1 year guys all the time. You want guys that are your guys and you can build with them from year to year. So I think there'll always be a focus for us on getting young talent that wants to come be a part of it and kind of take leadership role every year as they get there. The freshman year, they work hard, they learn under the guys ahead of them. And then sophomore year, they take a little bit more of that leadership. And then by the time they're juniors, they're the guys and they can go out there and help run the program.
Brett, I was looking through your guys' statistics, hitting statistics specifically, and I saw, Jacob French, who was in the transfer portal, and he started out at a Division II, San Francisco State, and he put up really good numbers there, and he transferred and is now playing for you guys. This year, he put up better numbers in the ACC than he did playing last year at a Division II. Um, I don't know if I've really ever seen that before from that quickly of a transition. But like, I mean, what are your thoughts on him?
I mean, he's honestly Frenchie's special. He's a great mixture of talent. Obviously, he's super talented. He's got bat speed. He's got the hit gene. He's got that bat to ball ability that's kind of God given. Like some guys just really know where their barrel is, and he's one of those guys. Like he finds a way to get his barrel to the baseball super consistently, which is a lot of fun to work with. And then on top of that, he's a great kid and he's a really hard worker. So when you see someone that's willing to go in there and put in the work and ask questions and be part of the process and not just want the instant result, and they have that talent, someone's gonna be special. And I mean, I think he hit 390 this year, whatever it was. Super special year for him. He's a big piece of what we're doing here, and he's just the right kid.
Last thing, Brett, I wanted to ask you about, because honestly, I don't know, and I'm curious about it. I need to eventually, but I've never been I've been to California, but I haven't been to Cal where you're at. What's it like? Like, what's the campus like? What's around the campus? Like, what's the vibe like? I've never been in the area, but I think people would be interested to learn more about your guys' campus and spot.
Yeah, the campus is beautiful. It's got like huge trees all throughout. It's kind of like it's more of a walking campus than like you don't really drive through the campus. There's parking lots are kind of around it. A lot of like electric scooters and bikes and all that and people walking, but it's kind of tiered up on a hill. Super cool. You get to the very top and it's the football stadium up there built into the hill, which is really cool. And then the baseball field is down there at the bottom of the hill, kind of surrounded by buildings and stuff, student centers and the basketball arena. So we're kind of tucked in there with buildings all around. The track stadium is kind of like a high right field. There's like the grandstands behind right field, which is really cool. But yeah, it's a good environment for sure. Great weather, access to major, San Francisco's 10, 15 minutes away, things like that. So, I mean, it's a really good spot for sure. And our guys really like it.
Awesome. Well, Brett, I appreciate you coming on today. I know this is the first time we've actually ever talked. I know we've texted a little bit here and there, and I still remain to be right when it comes to when I saw you had pro experience, but you even made it to the major leagues, but you played a long time too. And I've always found that whenever I talk with, or I always want people on the podcast who if they have a lot of experience playing and then they have also get into coaching right away, like usually I find that they have a lot of wisdom when it comes to hitting, because they've failed so many times and tried so many different things out. And I'll be honest, like that's exactly what I feel like you bring to the table as a hitting coach. So I'm excited that you're in the college game now, and not that there's a lot of good pro hitting coaches out there too, but I think we need as many good hitting coaches at the college level as possible. I spend most of my time working with high school players, and so the more guys we can get like you to help take their game to another level at the college level, I think is phenomenal. So I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you're at the college level, and I really do appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your kind words and it was a lot of fun.